Emergency services swarmed the property in Paisley on Friday the 18th of October following reports of concerns for a man inside. Police, paramedics and firefighters responded to the incident in the May Road area at around 2:30 p.m. A 37-year-old man was arrested and is due to appear at Paisley Sheriff Court at a later date. Glasgow's scaled-back Commonwealth Games will be held between the 23rd of July and 2nd of August. The 2026 Games will begin exactly 12 years after those held in Glasgow in 2014. The event, which will be much smaller than the previous games, will see 10 sports take place across 4 venues in the city. These venues will be the Emirates Arena, Tollcross International Swimming Centre, the Scottish Events Campus and Scotstoun Stadium. The body of Alex Salmond, Scotland's former First Minister, has arrived back in Scotland on a plane which landed at Aberdeen Airport on Friday the 18th of October, just before 2 p.m. His coffin was greeted by members of his family, New Alba Party leader Kenny MacAskill and a lone piper. A private family service is to be held on a date that has not been confirmed yet, and a public memorial will follow at a later date. Millions of people are set to be handed smartwatches to track their health as part of Labour's 10-year plan to save the NHS. Wearable tech, including devices track blood pressure, glucose spikes, and how cancer patients are responding to treatment, will be issued across the country to help prevent illnesses and treat more people at home. Health Secretary Wes Streeting said if we want to save the things we love about the NHS, we have to change it. He also said we will rebuild the health service around what patients tell us they need. And now for African news. Mozambique has been rocked by the murder of 2 prominent opposition figures. New opposition party Podemos lawyer Alvino Dias, who was also an advisor to its presidential candidate Venancio Mondlane, died alongside party official Paulo Gambi. They were gunned down late at night on Friday the 18th of October by attackers chasing the car they were travelling in. Their deaths come as the country waits for the results of the contested 9th of October elections. And that's the latest from Jambo Newsroom. I'm Andrew Biney.
Need security? Call Alpha One Plus Limited, a strategic security resourcing platform that connects you with licensed security personnel. We cater for our clients' security needs, from manned guarding, door supervision, event security, all the way up to close personal protection. Alpha One Plus Limited, your one-stop security solution. Call now at 44-074-2526-7909 or send us an email on info@alphaoneplus.com.
Across the World Wide Web, on your mobile devices, on social media platforms. This is Jambo Radio! www.jamboradio.co.uk. We are multilingual. We are conversational in the languages you best understand. We are Jambo Radio! Jambo Radio, inspiring transformation.
Hello and welcome to Touchpoint with Tayo. Today on Jambo Radio, the show where everything matters. I'm your host, Tayo Owueye. And on Touchpoint, we engage African realities. We touch on trendy issues. And we also look at issues concerning Africans in diaspora and Africans in Africa itself. And on Touchpoint today, we're still on Black History Month, motherhood, and the future generations. What is about motherhood and the future generations? How pivotal is motherhood to the generation of any nation, generation of a family? That is what we're going to talk about today. And I have a mother and a professional here with me today. Live, I have my guest joining me live in a Jambo Radio Scotland studio. Here, live in Glasgow, Scotland, I have Oladayo Bode Balogun. Hello, Dai. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How about you?
Wonderful. You're welcome to Touchpoint with Tayo today. As usual, you can join us on every of our social media platform. On Facebook, you can join us on Jambo Radio Scotland, which is also the same link or the same platform for our YouTube channel. On Twitter, you can join at jamboradio.1, which is X, and on Instagram at jamboradio.scotland. You can also email us info@jamboradio.co.uk. Join us. Send your comments, send your questions. We'll be here to have conversation with you. Today it's about motherhood. Last week we talked about reimagined man, but I want to tweak it up again. Just talk about motherhood today and the future generations. Dayo, let's start with this. I usually want to get my guests to be a bit relaxed. If you could describe your parenting style using a song or a movie title, what would it be and why?
Okay, I will choose a movie, and it will be Ultimate Gift. The Ultimate Gift is a movie that really defines what parenting should be about, and that's because it's a movie about a man who was very wealthy, and he had children, and he had maybe one grandchild, as far as I remember in that movie. But his children somehow parenting had gone bad, and his children they didn't turn out right, and they were just the kind of children who were waiting for his inheritance when he died, so that they can just go off and just spend. And the man knew. So he met with a lawyer who was also his friend, and he came up with a plan to divide his inheritance. He ensured that his children, because he knew they were just going to waste his inheritance, so he ensured that he just gave them things that were not like what they were expecting. And so they were wondering, where is all of his inheritance going to? And then he had this grandson who he then planned that this will be the one who would take his inheritance. But he didn't start off throwing it at the grandson, and he knew that all of his children and even that grandchild, the grandchild was already tending in the direction of his children, but the guy was younger. So he decided that he would first reform the guy's life before he passed on the inheritance to him. And so what he did first was the Ultimate Gift is a series of about 12 gifts. So he took the child through. The first gift he gave the child was work, right? He sent off the guy somewhere. The guy thought he was going to go and pick up the inheritance or something. He grudgingly went there because he was a spoiled child. And so he grumbled all the way, but he went. When he got there, he met with one of the grandfather's friends who put him to work. Wow. And by the time, a lot of months had passed, the guy had learned to work. And then he went on to the gift of friends, the gift of money, the gift of, he told the guy to go and meet his friends and ask them. So he took all of the guy's properties, all of the money. He blocked all of his cards, all those things that the guy would have used to go to parties, just pay anyhow. And he asked him to go out with his friend. He went out with his friend, and his cards were declined, and so he could not make payment. And then his girlfriend, who was supposed to, so he said, well, just pay. He has always paid, he has always sponsored her, and just pay for me. And the lady, like, you're asking me to pay, and then she walked out. And so it started becoming clear to him that he didn't really have friends, so he took it all the way: the gift of friends, the gift of money, the gift of, relationships, the gift of passion, purpose. By the time he was done with all of this, the guy had become a new man, right? Which is really the ultimate. So when he even gave the guy the money, guess what? This guy didn't go and squander. He went to go and build an institution to help others. So at the point that that happened, then he released the final inheritance that he actually had for the guy, right? So those series of gifts, transformed the guy's life. And I feel like even though he was doing a corrective action, I think that's really how we should raise children.
Wow. Yeah. If there's anything I learned from this, before you can get the ultimate gift, there's a process to it. So for every child, there's a need for us to take them through a process.
Yes.
Considering that process, we're in a very contemporary world today. The social landscape is quite different from the day or from your own days up to this moment, and even in terms of the space that we're in. We're in another country, different from our own home country. How do you think mothers should instill values, ethics, cultural heritage in their children these days, where everybody seems like we don't even know what is true now?
So I would start with the basics, because there's no 1, 2, 3 formula with parenting, and every child is different and every destiny is different. But if we think about the fact that motherhood and parenting is partnership with God to raise a child according to God's plan for the child's life. I mean, we all know from Jeremiah 1:5 that God has created every human being with a purpose in mind, including the children that he has given to us. So if we think about it that way, and we know that what this child has a destiny that God has preordained. It's not me who's giving the child that destiny. My role as a parent, my role as a mother, is to partner with God for the child to come into the fulfillment. And I strongly believe that that's what the scripture that says, train up a child in the way that he should go. Not the way that I want them to go.
Yeah, she.
Right? Yeah, and she. Well, we know that when the Bible says,
I'm just trying to.
Yeah, so so for me, it is a calling. It's something that God is expecting. And let me add that there's also a period of that training, right? It's the period of birth till about 18 years, because what happens is, if we don't maximize the training period, we're now trying to do corrective work as adults. That's not the plan of God. As adults, a child should already be launched and right on the path that God wants them to be.
Even today.
Yeah.
Even after 18, even when you are married, and you still have your mom or your dad alive, this still training you.
No, it shouldn't be training.
Is it?
Of course. I mean, at 18, definitely, you perhaps still need some support, some guidance, but you're formed. That's the truth, right? A lot of things that, research has shown that a child's brain, develops somewhere between 0 and 7. Some say 0 and 10.
Yeah.
That's the best time to set the foundation. You see, what we're trying to do at 18, if at all, is corrective. And correction is never the plan. The plan is to exactly. So the plan is to set it right from the beginning, right?
So, what do you think the impact of these values are on future generations? I mean, in terms of if you have that values instilled at the beginning, what do you think these would get us to do in the future? Is there any thing to it?
So I would just say it this way. I mean, if a child is properly raised and the work is done, and that foundation, because that foundation, I mean, just like every building and everything, the foundation is like the most important. When the foundation is set and things are working right, that child would naturally grow to occupy, the place that they're supposed to be as adults. And what it means is that a child who is raised that way, who's raised to be, a king, who's raised to occupy their territory, to fulfill the plan and purpose of God for their lives, imagine how they will function in the society. Imagine how they will function in the economy. Imagine how they will function in places of leadership. Imagine how they would raise their own children. Imagine how their marriages will be. Do you see? Imagine everything about their life, how they will handle their finances, how they would, you see? And so it would also affect future generations in terms of, it is how they have been, nurtured, and how they have, formed, is how they would also raise their children, right? So that's why it is key for, that training. There's a scripture that comes to mind, and it's I'm trying to find the exact word, but he says that an heir does not differ from a
slave or something.
Yes.
Like that.
if it's a child.
Yeah.
Do you see? So the beauty of raising, a child is that you don't stay a child forever, right?
Yeah.
And that even means that we the parents can rest. We can go into another kind of parenthood. Maybe praying over them, maybe giving counsel when necessary.
Praying is good,
right? What
the praying aspect is good too.
So exactly. So we're not supposed to be actively trying to, the way to shape their lives.
Yeah. Yes.
When they're adults, right? So it's the period of 0 to 18 that we really have to train. And let me say that's the point where there's a lot of distractions.
Yeah.
Parents are struggling to get work, make money, make a life. There's so much distractions.
And the children too are struggling with technology.
Exactly. So everybody is just on their own, and before you know it, time passes. Before the parent knows, see this teenager, she's rude, he's unruly. Time has passed, and they're now trying to bend, and they're shouting, and they're trying to say who. When time has passed, so it's also important to maximize the time. That's one thing that I know that we need to work. I know that we need to get other things done. But if we know that this thing is a calling, this thing is an assignment, because there's a lot that goes into motherhood and goes into parents. It starts with, even observing the child. Everything about a child is prophetic, right? When Jesus was growing up, right, there were things that his mother would see. And many times they said she hid it in her heart and she prayed. There has to be time enough with children to observe things, to observe how they're growing, to observe how they're...
I think that pattern has always been, because the one way or the other, I've seen parents, I've seen mothers says that, I just knew you were going to be this.
Exactly.
Because there's a pattern.
Exactly.
Check
exactly.
whatever scripture and anything,
yes, exactly.
Any of the religions or something like that. You'll see that one way or the other, one's mom will probably say, I knew you were going to be like this.
Yes, exactly.
And so there is need for parents to also be observant.
Present. Because if you're not
present,
if you're too tired, if all the time you give your children is tired, you're cranky, go and sit down, go and to your own, go to your room, go and that kind of thing. If you're not present in that shaping, actively working with them, you're going to miss these things.
The words that came right now. If you're not present in the shaping will be present for you. So, because by the time they start shaping you,
exactly,
you start shouting.
Because I mean, the prayers that what we pray is that we can rest. I feel like even though because I feel like even though we want to parent the children now, we also want to get to the point where we can rest over these children, right? Where it's even the children that sort of parent us. That there's a role, there's that role reversal whereby
parents
I think that's one of the indications of success.
Yeah.
Right. And I would see an example that, it was very funny to me, but it also just reinforced what I always believed about parenting. And that's when Bishop David Oyedepo was 70 recently. And, I started seeing funny pictures come up. I mean, when I say funny, pictures where he was posing, it was on a guitar, it was, I was like, people put Papa up to this thing. I mean, Papa is what some people call him. His children put him up to this thing, but you see, some years ago, they could never have gotten him to do that thing because, there were children in that sense. But now, it just shows how much the kind of role that they now play that they've now assumed in his life. And they're like, Daddy, this is your 70th, we're taking over. Do you see? You sit there, do this, do that. I laughed at the pictures. I kept posting them every day, because that's one man who has, spiritually fathered me. And so it was just a joy to see. As much as it was very funny, I was like, no, they got Papa to hold a saucer and pose. He would never have done that on his own, but it just shows the influence of his children on his now. And I think that's really how it's supposed to be.
So let's look at, because you've mentioned the being present as a mother being present. I mean, fathers, don't worry, your days are coming. We're going to talk about your own your own time. But in terms of the challenges and triumphs of motherhood, are there any challenges that mothers are facing today? Specifically, you can also narrow down. You can talk generally about mothers in respective of whether it is a host country or home country, either you are white or Caucasian, anything, but also narrow down to specific challenges that African mothers are also facing as immigrants also.
Okay. First, I would say that a lot of things have changed about motherhood in terms of there was a time that a lot of mothers were either not working or they were doing some sort of part-time roles, you know, whereby they could, have a lot more time, for the children, right? But things have definitely changed. I mean, a lot of mothers now have full-time roles and still have motherhood. So there's a lot to juggle. And this is even regardless of where you are. But, bringing it home to African mothers in diaspora, then when we think about it, like, first of all, you don't have the same support system that you have back home, right? Even if you have maybe a relative and all, they're also here doing their own work. They have their own children. They have, so you can't, back home, say Nigeria, my country, you could get a house help who could live in. You could have someone who does your laundry. You could have someone who cleans.
You can have family members come around.
You can have family members come around. You can have friends. Like, you can easily, it's fluid.
It's like family members,
it's not even limited to like one or two people. It's like my brother, my sister, my uncle, my auntie, my mom, my neighbor. Yeah. So you have like a whole community, a support system. So what it is here is that we don't definitely have that community. It's not because you don't have good friends or you don't have maybe some family, but everyone also sort of has the same situation. Yeah. They too have to go to work, weekends back home. Our country, it's a different exactly.
Setting,
it's only few
and the social structure.
Only few workers do Saturday work. Overnight work in that sense. Shift work. In this scenario, it's different. You have a lot of people doing shift, overnight, weekend work, right? So it's not like you can say that, someone's weekend is free and you can sort of utilize their help, when you need it. And even a lot of mothers are even working weekends. A lot of mothers are working nights. So yes, the challenges are real.
So it means that the fathers also need to be present.
Yes, of course. The fathers, it's the father's support will go a long way because you can't imagine the mother doing everything. Like it's a lot. The taking care of a child is a full, maybe double time job, right? So it can't be done alone by a mother. It will be too much. So there has to be that partnership. And that's why you even see when we think about the people that we met here, like the Caucasians, you see how they do it. They handle it together, support. Yes. So I think that they support themselves a lot. Yes. They support themselves a lot.
I think I've seen even where there are also systems that they could also plug into.
Yeah.
Nurseries and all those childcare.
Yes, and they have their families here too. Because think about it, they are indigents, so they still have a few leverage here and there. So they have that advantage over African mothers. And then, like we said, they have, and then the way of life that they even if a Caucasian mother has a child, normally they don't even cook as much in the house. So when they have a child, they can focus on the child, go out to eat. They can, so life is still sort of a lot more, fluid for them. Exactly. So definitely, African mothers need a lot of support.
I think we need to have a session or an episode concerning African grandmothers and see their own perspective to all of these raising of children. But let me, because mothers are doing quite a number of things. They're doing a lot. And that will tell on their health and their well-being. And which we're zooming in as mothers, as caregivers now.
Yeah.
Are there any health challenges that you've seen mothers face, and what is that impact on child rearing now? They have health challenges. So how does it impact child rearing and even the family dynamics?
So, well, I would maybe narrow down more on mental health and wellness, because I think that that's like the biggest in terms of, the kind of exhaustion that mothers face. Because, when you're exhausted on every, I think a lot of women are able to sort of carry on tasks a lot, but there's just a point where they could get really tired, and especially when there's no outlets. Especially when we think about African mothers again, in Nigeria, maybe on a Saturday, you'd have gone for a party, you'd have gone for a birthday, you have that outlet. Maybe you even have somebody you dropped your child with, and you just have that outlet to sort of, express the stress of the week and just really start at fresh. For a mother here, I think that, one has to be very, very deliberate about your mental health. There's also physical health. I mean, you would have heard a lot of, mothers who broke down, who, because mothers are built to be selfless, right? And in handling children, some people have 3 children, 4 children, 2 children. In trying to handle and, they just sort of really let go of themselves in trying to ensure that everybody in the family, their spouse, everyone is fine. And it could really tell, after a number of years. I mean, when I think about, even my sleep schedule, just with one child, I know I know what it is like. I'm like, okay, so my sleep is gone for the night, and I have work. And I have work I'm going to wake up to.
I just want to chip it in.
Yeah.
And it's just the beginning.
I know, exactly.
Someone is watching me now.
Right? I have work I'm going to wake up to in the morning. That is a full-time job.
Yeah. And
I'm struggling at night, with one thing or the other. And throughout the day, round around like that. So, yes, it calls for, once in a while. I mean, there's a need for mothers to, take that break. I think that one thing that I noticed that the Caucasian do a lot that we don't do, and I know it's because of a lot of settling down, a lot of trying to make money and all. They take recreational is very big to them, and it helps. It helps their marriages. It helps their it helps the home and all.
Yeah.
They go out. Like I said, even to eat, you see a mother with like a 3-week baby, 1-week baby. They're outside eating.
But we want to eat.
We want to eat in the house. We want to cook all the food, and we want to eat, in the house. So all of those things, I feel like it would help a lot of mental health. It will help even a lot of wellness in general. It helps a lot of exercise. You see that they are fit because they are pushing the stroller. They're outside. They go to mom and child sessions. They attend a lot of things that help them sort of, we had this, and even back home in Nigeria, maybe like a 40 days don't go out, and you're just there, just breastfeeding, around the clock.
But I think they do have it. They give mothers maternity leave or so.
Oh yes, mothers
which
get
is like a year.
A year, yeah, it's a year.
So it's even much more than 40 days.
Oh, definitely. No, I'm even saying like stay at home, don't step outside.
Yeah.
In terms of
recuperating your body.
Exactly. In 40 days, I mean, but
the body will have at least come back to shape.
Exactly. So I feel like that recreation, that's just getting out, just still feeling normal, even though you have a small baby, right? I think it really helps.
Wow.
And even as the children grow, I think that recreation, family vacation, picnic, going to the park, I think all of those things are things that a lot of African immigrants need to start to do, just so that and those things help bonding with the children, rather than just being home with the children. When you're in a different setting, the children too are excited, conversations are happening, you're able to find out what's going on in their lives, and you're able to know what areas.
But before we go for a break, I just want to say, everyone work with calculator.
Yeah. I know that financial chase is a big part of why we live the way that we live. But I think that it's still important to put the dream before us, because at times, we have to weigh it and balance it, right? Because like I said, the years are important.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much. I have so many comments on here. I'll just read some of them, and some are also questions. So we're going to hold those questions till after the break. So many questions. Okay, Afema Wosomi said it is not what we leave for them that is important, but what we leave in them. Fatuki Taye says kudos to the guest. Please, can you say something about African mothers, the attraction of living abroad, career, child rights in the UK, and raising a child in the way of the Lord? And just hold on to those thoughts. And he also asks that it would be nice to hear how parents or mothers in this aspect are able to integrate the expectations of the UK government on child training and the development into their values. And a very long-term known person raised the name of one of my uncles, Mr. Apata of blessed memory, who is the dad of the popular Nini Ola and I've forgotten her name again. One other artist again. How he's been able to raise his children, which is quite can also raise quite a number of people as the proprietor of the school in Nigeria then. And Fatoke Tai mentioned mothers also need to do a lot about knowing the friends of their kids, have more time to spend with their kids, and making them to understand why they can't have some gadgets. And on the Facebook, Harugnadi says that if you're not present for the shipping will be present for you. We'll go on break right now.
Running into him every other week, getting closer every time you both speak. Say there's a mutual connection, hoping that he just don't wanna creep. Thinking about him on the daily, waiting for the day that he will leave her. Your friends tell you be careful, but what is life when you're just careful? Looking at him like he's a god figure. Maybe you just need a father figure. Now it's all gone left, he said, she said. You knew that were issues before you got there, but he's older, you just don't understand. He should be responsible for an older man, and now you're feeling it firsthand. At one point you wanted him to be your man, your man, your man, your man. Pick yourself up, girl, it's not deep. Worth more than this, you just can't see. You just need love and affection. He's playing on your insecurity. Big and strong, but he's really weak though. Take control of your mind and roll. Time to go, girl, the lessons up. Lift yourself, lift your blessings up. So what's it gonna be? Are you gonna go around or are you gonna leave? Heading in the wrong direction. Is this the girl that you wanna be? Looking at him like he's a god figure. Maybe you just need a father figure. And now you're feeling it firsthand. At one point you wanted him to be your man, your man, your man, your man. You're just gonna lay there. You don't have to stay there. You deserve better. It's romantic. But he said he loves you and also loves her too. It's a disrespect to yourself. It's romantic. romantic. You are smart. You're no fool. You are brave. You are true. You won't lose. Trust in you. Trust in you. God's with you.
Well, welcome back to Touchpoint with Tayo, the show where everything matters on Jambo Radio Scotland. And we've been talking about motherhood and the future generation. And we're still celebrating the Black History Month. And it's not just a one-time thing. This is something that we should celebrate on and on and on. Daya, I would like to ask a question that Fatoke Tai asked earlier on, that it would be nice to also hear how mothers in this aspect are able to integrate the expectation of the UK government on child training and development into their values. What do you say to that?
Okay. Well, let me separate it. So, I'm sure that when they say the UK government, maybe they are referring to the fact that it's a more child-led, whereby you have limits in terms of maybe how you correct a child or how you discipline a child, because the culture is more lenient and more like it's more like, what's the word now? It's free, right? And I feel that's what the person is trying to ask. And in terms of your values, I would say that you focus on your values first, and which are whatever values that it is you have. If you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, you're right. You focus on the right values and look to instill the values in your children. Of course, there are a couple of things I agree with. Things like beating, it should not be, right? We should not feel that we have to beat children to get them to do the right thing. And it even places a demand on us as parents to think of other ways that we can shape the child. If you're trying to influence a person, you don't need to beat them, right, to get them to do what So the onus is on us to develop ourselves, right? And from the things I even understand about children, a child's brain is developing. A child is not a mature human being. An adult, a parent, is a mature human being.
They still make mistakes.
So if you of course the parents, but I'm saying then compared to a child who is it's like we expect a child to be mature. There are times we it almost feels like we love children that are they just sit down, they don't play, they don't scatter anywhere, they are not naughty. No, children are going to be children. The meaning of mature is synonymous with adults. Immature, unreasonable is synonymous with children. So children are going to do a lot of funny things, We as adults are the ones who have to be mature, right?
Funnily, the scripture says that it is
it is
what do you have to say that it is skin that drives away that maturity?
It says the rod, but I believe that the rod in this case is not,
the rod,
yes, I think the rod is the rod of discipline. It's the patience. And at this point, let me just also mention that what we need in parenting is structure. What we need is the help of, and I say structure because of our busy lives, because when you're very busy, you then have to be intentional, for what is important, right? And one of the ways I do that, and I would encourage as many people who can, there's this academy called the Intentional Parents Academy. It is run by Wendy Ologe. What it does is that it helps to give parents structure on how, it's not forcing you to do anything, but it's helping you, it's guiding you, providing principles, providing ways that your presence in your child's life on a daily basis. And as you do that, right, you see that you're able to instill your values.
Yeah.
She has a book called Connect to Correct. And that is saying that if you connect with somebody, it's easier for you to correct them when they trust you.
Definitely.
She has another book that says discipline is not an emergency, which means that from a small age,
you structure
things in their life so that they don't get to. Many parents wait till like maybe the child is 13, the child has now become full blown. They now start to shout and start to, say, why are you like this? Why are you rude? When you have really left out some things that are very important.
Let me describe it the way we describe it back at home. The person has become rubber band.
Exactly. So let discipline not be an emergency. Let us take, the UK government, they're a government who is just focused on perhaps ensuring that children's rights and all are protected. I don't think their intention is, I know that there are agendas in different places, but I don't think that the overall intention is evil, right? It's for us to ensure that, we take, there's no point beating the child and saying, no, don't go and say it in school, or, just take it out. Just imagine that you can actually raise a child without, hurting them or beating them. And if you ever make that mistake, let it be on you. Make it right with the child, but that's not the way to raise a child.
Let me comment with some questions online. James Olabisi Ayodele is asking, how does living abroad change African motherhood philosophy? How do African mothers change motherhood philosophy in Scotland? Then probably you can merge this together. What makes a perfect mother? Kemi Shola is asking.
Okay, first, how does living abroad change motherhood? First of all, I think it's the reality that people, because people feel like, you have to beat, you have to spank, you have to shout. I think it's that reality, like, you can't do those things here, and when that reality sets in, I think some people they just really feel helpless.
So wait, right? What is that thing? What, if you were to define or say something about African motherhood philosophy, what is it? Is there any straight one jacket way to say this African motherhood philosophy?
So, when I just think of the past, it's just maybe the philosophy of, I am the powerful person here, and the child is the, that kind of thing. So I think getting here, you start to realize, because the children are more outspoken, they're more confident, and so you realize that you cannot just impose yourself on them. You find a lot of mothers in the past shouting, they're like, go and get this thing, they talk, they just sort of just get the child to do what they want the child to do. I think the difference here is just realizing that it can't work.
I think that philosophy is also changing, because if I look back into my own, it's not what I received. The rod. It is not the rod. It is the rod. I actually received that. And one way or the other, I think it did just correct something that but it may be fear that if you do this, so it's the fear of if I do this, I would be caned again. So it is the cane that I'm afraid of. So is that part of the philosophy of African motherhood, that don't spare the rod, just beat that immaturity out of it? And how is, you're living in Scotland now, in a Western world. How is living in Scotland changing that for you?
So I would say, first of all, even back home, some of these things are changing, right? It was there at some point. What people do and works for them. Just like you said, a bit of the road worked for you. And that's a generation. So I think that the generation now are different, right? And it's not going to work. So whether back home in Africa or here, we already see that, it won't work to beat a child. It won't work to just be screaming at a child, right? And so what it means is that it places a demand on us to come up higher and really find out, what do we need to be able to raise a wholesome child without bullying them, without oppressing them in any way, without shouting them out down, right? What does it raise? So it places a lot of demand on us. I mean, it means we have to be more patient. We have to understand the child. We have to connect with the child. We have to start early, right? We have to ensure that the child sees reason. Even though they are young, right? They see value in what we're so that when they also get to the point, there's a point that when you have helped a child too, when they get to that point, then they are able to carry on, because they then decide this is who I want to be, right? So it places a lot of demand on us to first of all develop ourselves. So a reorientation and rebuilding has to even happen with us. Right, parenting starts with us. It starts with us changing our mindsets, changing what doesn't work, changing. If you find yourself just seeing that you are shouting at your child, you are beating your child, then you need to step back and know that I need to correct something about myself before I can raise an wholesome child.
So, what makes a perfect mother?
I mean, I would define, a perfect mother as one who is, intentional about motherhood, who partners with God, to raise a child day by day. It's not one who would not have flaws. It's not one who would not have mistakes, but one who can step back from those mistakes, rather than continue in them and make the changes that are required just for the child's future. Right. That's what I would define a perfect mother.
Wow. Quite a number of comments online. Let me quickly read. Dayo Yelaja is saying that I believe in understanding how your unique diaspora experience can help fashion how you get to enjoy living better. And Professor Michael Balogun says, don't beat your child. Don't beat your child. And Adea Yofe is saying that the rod is beaten. No need for semantics and interpretation. Discipline is multidimensional. Talking, petting, tendering, and beating applies as demanding. It's a multidimensional thing. But here, don't beat your child. Professor Michael Balogun is saying, as a child in Nigeria 70 years ago, my parents did not cane me. I remember that when Prof, we had a discussion on fatherhood, he made mention about that, and he said, should we generalize and say African mothers beat their children? That's a question for you.
No, I would not generalize, because I know that a lot of people perhaps have better understanding, but I know that many people experienced, and I'm speaking on the whole now, many people experienced beating because, they just thought it was the right thing to do. And, when, they feel frustrated, I'm not blaming it on anybody, but when they feel frustrated, you just feel like the next thing is to lash out or to beat. I think that, and that's why I gave that comparison of a child. If you think about the fact that a child's reasoning is just developing, it helps you. You're sort of empathetic towards a child because you understand that, okay, this child has messed up, but I understand that their reasoning is far lower than mine. If you look at it and address things in that way, you're not going to just, think you want to rush the child, or you want to. There are times your emotions might get the better of you, but if you have it at the back of your mind, you're quickly able to pull yourself and correct yourself. Children can do crazy things, you see, but you have to measure it in your head. You have to expect it. If you were expecting a child who, as they are born, they'll just sit down somewhere, they'll just be... No, that's not childhood. There's nothing childhood about that. That's a problem you should perhaps investigate. A child is going to be all over. They are going to do the worst things. They are going to do what you told them not to do. They are going to go where you told them not to do. They are going to surprise you in ways that...
Wonderful ways.
Even you will wonder, like, how did you think about this? Right? So if we just look at it, we're more empathetic towards children at all ages. That this child, their brain is still growing. They're developing. I am the adult here. I'm the one who can be mature. This child
you're left
cannot.
From your right.
Right, exactly. So I must continue to still help this child to go from where they are to where they should be.
I have so many questions coming up, and But let me ask this. There are quite a number of questions I'm just going to skip at this moment, and hopefully we're going to have another session, another episode next time. How do you think mothers should balance cultural tradition with the demand of modern business and workplace in a globalized economy?
Sorry, come again with the question.
How do you think mothers should balance cultural traditions, especially African mothers, immigrants, with the demands of modern business for those who have business or for those who intend to have business, and workplace practices in a globalized economy? Even Nigeria, Africa is in a globalized economy, especially those who are here.
Yes. So I believe that what the person is saying, that, what motherhood has been is, all of the house chores, all of the raising the child, all of the cooking, and yet you have to work.
Yes.
Yet you have to run a business, right?
Yes.
How do you balance that in a global, in the modern economy that we are? Support systems. It has to be support systems. Whether you're back home in Nigeria or in Africa, if you have money to sort of hire out some tasks, to delegate some tasks to people and pay them for it, go for it. Same thing applies here, right? It's to, of course, find ways to support, to ensure that you are able to still get everything done. But remember what is priority: the child.
Yeah.
In terms of, those years. You're not going to have that child with you forever. So if someone can cook for you, get them to cook for you. If someone can do the dishes, if someone can, take care of the house, if someone can do anything.
Even if it is to write the recipe for them.
Exactly. I mean, all of those things are, they are fluid. They're, so it's keeping the thing that is most important in all of these things as much as possible. So if we can get ways, structure is really important. Yeah. A mother in today's world who has, the home front and who has a career has to be structured. You have to have structure in how to do things so that, everything works in that sense, right? So support is great. Support of the husband is very important. Support, from friends is very important. Support systems. There are a lot of motherhood communities, from grannies. There are a lot of motherhood communities who, you can just ask questions. Or how should I do this? Because remember, you're away from home. You're away from, so how can I get this done? How can I, sort this here? All of those things are important. If you can afford it, take your children to nursery, take them, to school. A lot of things, that can ensure that you can still have balance on both ends.
Let me ask this. We know so many people in Africa. The economy is really out of hand. So how would you advise mothers in that situation? Raising their children. Things are out of hands. Things are quite expensive. What will you say to mothers? We're not even looking at fathers now. What will you say to mothers at this moment?
That one is hard. I empathize with people in Nigeria, particularly those who are not on the high income earning side. And I know how tough it can be. Right, then trying to juggle things in a very difficult financial situation. And what would I say? I would say, take one day at a time, right? Ensure that you put structure in place in terms of finances to adjust your budget as much as possible, right? I would say learn a skill that can maybe make you sort of more. Maybe you can get a lot more income without having to move around so
like
much.
hard to your hustle.
Exactly. That kind no so that's why I said that one that does not something that is a skill that you can do
so that
it's
some of our audience would need to understand that it is not adding to your hustle.
No, because don't add to your
because
hustle.
the hustle will now will now add to your struggle.
Yeah. I think a lot more collaboration between mothers is then important, right? But it needs to be safe. Because one of the things, that I know that's happened in the past generation that is not maybe a lot talked about is that almost every girl child that I know, and maybe even some boy children, were abused, as a result of, being in people's homes, straying, just being away from, So I would say that even though I'm saying collaboration, please ensure that people that you leave your children with are people that you can trust, so that we will stop the flow of that pattern of abuse. A lot of people don't talk about it, but almost every girl child was abused. And it's important that we have those conversations, right? So don't just say, because they're a family member or they're a close person, you have to understand their values, vet their values, understand what they hold there before you. But I think a lot of collaboration would help, in just working together while the economy, I'm hoping the economy becomes better, while the economy works out, better, Okay.
Thank you so much. I'll just read some of the, and keep your pattern shots. Oladayo speaks. I'm coming right now. And Kemi Shola says that motherhood beliefs varies across race, age, education, culture, and the individual's background, upbringing, which is what he had actually echoed also. Fatoki Tai is saying, do not beat any kid, no matter your anger or frustration. Address the subject of the matter and not the object of the matter. I had to add object of the matter to it, or matter to it too. Address the subject of the matter and not the object of the matter. The guest was right. A child must not be abused in any way. And I want to say that it's not just only the girl child that was abused. In terms of even the boy child too was abused. We'll talk about the girl child and boy child later. And George Atame says, excellent topic. The guest is a mother mom and speak well and speak well on it. So bravo to you. So as we wrap up, because within the next 1 minute, Oladayo speaks.
I would say to every parent.
A call? Okay, so do you want to make the person come in? Okay.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tayo, for your show.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
So I was going to ask the guest, does she think our parents, or maybe modern parents, we're being too cautious of trust? Because she just mentioned about you have to trust the people that you leave your kids with. I think with some of us that grew up in a different time where the child brought up by the village, that notion of being over caution or have to trust somebody, and some of the people or kids that have been abused have been by trusted people. Does she think we are being too over cautious?
Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear clearly. Sorry.
Okay. Can you just summarize it? I knew there was about caution.
Yes. Does she think we are being too over cautious?
Okay. You're saying that are we being too over caution in terms of raising of children these days?
And trusting relations that we can keep our children with,
Yeah.
No, so I don't think we're being too overcautious when we decide to, decide to ensure that we can trust who we have our children with. Because abuse is not even just about the event. It's about how far it goes into the child's life. A lot of children are not even able to speak up at the points that the abuse has happened. And see, guess what? They go back to school and maybe if they were intelligent children, they continue to pass. You don't even know. It goes into their future somehow, and it's just waiting for them. Somehow, they grow and they cannot trust anybody because they were abused, in the home front or with relatives and all. So, as much as I know that we cannot be everywhere with our children, but it's important for us to educate them, Sex education is very important for us to start to have with children at very young ages. No child, as in once a child can say something I think it's important to start to speak to them about sex education, talk to them, allow them ask questions. I mean, part of the things that I think that the older generations failed with is because this conversations didn't even come up. So you see, the first day that maybe somebody tried to touch the child could not even come to the parents to say, this is what is starting to happen. And that thing then materializes, and then it goes full blown. So I think that, and then just to close out, I would say that it's important for us to train children and to let them know, that there can be an open communication between us. I think once there's an open dialogue between parents and children, information would flow, right? And we would know where to focus our discipline, our training on for going forward.
Thank you so much, Oladayo Bode Balogun. It's been a wonderful time on Touchpoint with Taya today, and we just barely touched point. That's it. We barely touched point, and I would like to thank you for coming to Touchpoint.
Thank you for having me,
Tayo, today. I'd like to thank my Touchpoint team and production crew also, and the backroom team and the researchers for their work on a weekly basis. And to my listeners and the audience, thank you for joining every week, and thank you for joining today. Remember, life's journey unfolds uniquely. Run your race to attract grace, because it is within the race that grace finds its expression. I've been your host, Tayo Oweye. Join me next week for another exciting topic where we'll be discussing more about Black History and Black History Month. Until then, have a good night rest.
My alarm did it.
There must be a heaven. You're another reason to believe.
You are listening to Jumbo Radio across